Hey, so today we're going to continue with Proverbs Chapter 3. This one moves away from what we talked about in the last video, which was more about the blessings and more about just like a lot of cool, fruitful stuff. And this one's more about specifically wisdom and what seems like chastisement or God's sort of correction that he gives to us. But we'll get into exactly why that might be a bit of an oversimplification. I'm excited to share this section of Proverbs chapter 3, the second half. Just been really, really loving Proverbs chapter 3. I just can't believe how much good stuff is packed in here. So I'm excited to share this with you guys. Let's see if we can find where we left off. I think we left off with verse 10. Yeah, and we're going to start here with verse 11. So I'll start, as usual, by just reading through the verses, and then we'll go back and kind of pick them apart one by one. Starting with verse 11. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son, in whom he delighteth. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things that thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to them that hold upon her, and happy is every one that retaineth her. The Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth, by understanding hath he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. So shall they be life unto thy soul, and grace to thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in power of thine hand to do it. Say not unto thy neighbor, Go and come again, and tomorrow I'll give thee, when thou hast it by thee. Devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. Strive not with a man without cause, if he have done thee no harm. Envy not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the froward is abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. The curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. Surely he scorneth the scorners, but he giveth grace unto the lowly. The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. Okay, that was a lot of reading, so hopefully you stuck with me there because it's super valuable to unpack it all. Let's just start at the very top here with verse 11. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, nor be weary of his correction. So normally here we think of the image of like, I don't know, a parent spanking their kid or something like that, right? We think of chastening as this kind of It's not a pleasant experience to be chastened. But really the word for chasten here is just musar. That's the Hebrew, which is just instruction. And you can think of instruction as really just the outpicturing of what you've been entertaining internally. The thoughts, the feelings that you have, they get outpictured. And that outpicturing instructs you as to what you've been thinking. So it's not as unpleasant as maybe it sounds. Also, we have the word correction here. Correction, the Hebrew, is tokeha, which is proof. So, again, this is pointing to this idea that it's the outward manifestation that we're talking about when we're talking about God's chastening or his correction. We think of proof as something that's like almost tangible, right? It's like obvious. It's right in front of our eyes. And here that works really well to drive home this point that, okay, what we're talking about is being reflected back by the external world, being reflected back our internal state. Moving on to verse 12. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father, the son in whom he delighteth. So this is a beautiful line here because it has lots of meaning. But again, if we look at correcting as an outpicturing that's telling us, basically just showing us, hey, this is what you're thinking about, this is how you're feeling inside, and if you want it to change, then you should change the inside. It's beautifully illustrated here by this metaphor of the Father and the Son. In the same way that a father begets the son, right? He has this sort of creation energy that he uses to create offspring. We do that same thing with our external world. And so in the same way, it's actually a beautiful, delightful process. I mean, the word delight is even used here. It's a fun process. It's a pleasurable process. And ultimately, it's a process of creation. And so in the same way, if God is outpicturing our internal state, it's because he loves us. It's because he wants us to continue to grow and evolve. In the same way that he created us, he wants us to be able to create heaven on earth for ourselves and for everyone else. So happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. So again, it's not this kind of drudgery, constant trials and tribulations, but it's a happy process. But here we really are going to transition, and so it's important to take pause because we're going to start really diving deep into what wisdom means. The book of Proverbs is the book of wisdom in a lot of ways, and wisdom is one of the most important things to really understand in the Bible. There's so much that can be said about it, but just by looking closely at the following verses, we're going to get a lot of insight into what real wisdom is and just how valuable it is. Again, you can't overstate how important wisdom is. If you want to live a good life, the Bible tells us over and over again that wisdom is the key. So we want to understand what wisdom is. I think one of the teachers who spoke most lucidly about wisdom was Quimby. And Quimby was a healer in the late 1800s who used biblical principles for essentially what we would call today faith healing. I think he would definitely have qualms with that terminology, but he was someone who understood wisdom very, very deeply. And I just want to quote a couple passages from some of his manuscripts as we go into this discussion about what wisdom is in the following lines. So Quimby says that perfect wisdom embraces every idea in existence. So normally we think of wisdom as knowledge. We tend to equate the two. So wisdom, we mistakenly think of it as this thing of like, okay, we're kind of like retaining all of these facts about the world. And sure, maybe they're organized in a useful way that we can practically apply to improve our lives. But at its core, it's just like a bunch of internal facts that hopefully correspond to some external truth that's out there. That is not how Quimby sees wisdom. Wisdom for him is something even more abstract. It's not something that's really attained or earned. Instead, it's something that embraces every idea in existence. Not just the facts of the material world, but literally every idea in existence. It's the space that holds those ideas, in a sense. And so let's continue this quote here. Perfect wisdom embraces every idea in existence, and therefore every idea that comes to light through the senses existed before to wisdom. So this is a bit poetic way of just saying everything that gets externalized, everything that happens in the material world, before it happened, it existed to wisdom, okay? So it existed in this place where all the ideas, all possibilities are embraced. So we're seeing here that Quimby, at least, is defining wisdom not as knowledge, not as something you know, but really as the space that holds all possibilities. And this is the space where all things really have their primary existence. This aligns perfectly with how Neville Goddard interprets. He interprets the Bible. Of course, Neville would call it imagination and not wisdom, but it's the same thing here. And just to really drive that home, let's finish the Quimby quote where he says, every person who ever was or ever will be existed as much before he ever came to our senses as afterwards, the same as any mathematical truth. So again, no time in this place, right? Where wisdom is, this kind of pure wisdom, pure imagination. There's no time there. There's no beginning and there's no future. In the same way that mathematical truth just is forever and ever, that's how we exist. That's how all things exist in their primary state, which is the imagination, or is wisdom. So now, knowing that about wisdom, let's look at some of the following verses and keep that in mind as we continue reading. So happy is the man that, now we're going back to the Bible verse. This is verse 13. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. So here we have two contrasting things. We have wisdom on one hand, understanding on the other. Wisdom, as we discussed, it's not something that's attained, it's something you find. It's something that you almost get in communion with. Whereas understanding is closer to the intellect, and that's something that is attained. It's something you can get. It's when you start to divide up things a little bit, put them in the proper order a little bit, and that's understanding. But both are important, obviously. Verse 14, for the merchandise of it being wisdom, for the merchandise of wisdom is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. So you can just look at merchandise as profit here. So what you gain of it is better than silver, better than gold. We could talk about the meaning of silver and gold, but it's not necessary for these purposes. It's enough just to say, hey, it's a really, really valuable thing to understand what wisdom is and to be aligned with it. Verse 15, she is more precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. So wisdom is more precious than rubies, so it's just super, super precious. And all the things you can desire are not to be compared unto her. So desiring always involves an object. It always involves something external. This again is saying desire is not something, or that is wisdom rather, is not something that can be desired. If it was, then it would be something you can desire and it could be compared unto it. But it's almost outside of the realm of comparison. It's not an object that can be desired. It is the thing that holds all desires, all ideas, all manifestation. It's pure wisdom. And so it's more precious than all those things, but it can't even be compared in the end because it's of an entirely different substance. So what's inside of it? Well, verse 16, length of days is first and foremost in the right hand of wisdom, and riches and honor are in the left hand. So the two closest, most proximal sort of objects within pure wisdom are length of days and riches and honor. I mean, that's some good shit, right? I mean, that's something you definitely want in your life. Verse 17, her ways are ways of pleasantness, and her paths, all her paths, are peace. So the way that wisdom operates, the way that wisdom creates, you could say, is not through striving, it's not through effort, it's not through labor. It's through pleasantness and peace. These are the ways that wisdom operates. And so if you're operating in those ways, you know that you are aligned with wisdom. And if you're not, it doesn't matter how well-intentioned, you know that you're not really operating from a place of wisdom. Verse 18, she is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is everyone that retaineth her. So if we didn't have if we still had doubts that wisdom was something worth striving for or attaining, I don't like the word striving, but if wisdom was worth its while, here, I mean, what's better than the tree of life? I mean, the tree of life is maybe you couldn't compliment anything higher than to call it the tree of life, especially in the Bible. But here we're saying wisdom is the tree of life to them that hold upon her. And not only that, but it makes you happy. Happy is everyone that retaineth her. So even if you're just a more superficial, hey, you just want an easy life that you can enjoy and just you can be happy in, nothing wrong with that. Wisdom's the key. Verse 19, the Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth, by understanding hath he established the heavens. So here again we have this contrast between wisdom and understanding. Wisdom is, again, the thing that holds all ideas. So here we see it's founding the earth. Founded, the Hebrew here is yesod, and it just means to lay the foundation. So the foundation, the ground beneath all of creation is wisdom. You see, it's saying it so clearly here. There's no denying what wisdom is. It's the ground beneath all ideas. And then just above that is understanding. And understanding is how God established the heavens. Established here is the Hebrew is kun, and that just means to erect. So from that foundation, you're having something come up. And that thing that's coming up is done through understanding. So verse 20. By his knowledge, the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. So we have wisdom, above that is understanding, and then just above that is knowledge. Sorry, or you could say, I don't like the word, maybe it's not best to say wisdom and then above that is understanding, because normally we think of above as like higher than or better. I just mean wisdom is the foundation, built upon wisdom is understanding, and then built upon that is knowledge. So knowledge is how God broke up the depths. So the depths are broken up. And so really this idea of it's a sort of Taoist idea where from two things come the thousand things or whatever. There's this notion in a lot of religious texts about the process of creation, how it's actually division or separation of things. So you start with the primordial essence or substance, and then you begin to divide it and divide it and divide it and break it up. And that's how we get all of manifestation. And here it's knowledge that ultimately dissects things, splits them apart, and causes things to multiply into the various colors and shapes and sizes and experiences that we have in our daily life. And the clouds drop down the dew. So that's just a poetic saying, a poetic way of saying that in life, as we know it, biological life starts to spring up, because obviously water is kind of the essence of life here. And this is a throwback to the book of Genesis and the 7 days of creation, but I won't go into all that. Verse 21, my son, let not them depart from thine eyes, keep sound wisdom and discretion. So keep your eyes on wisdom, always stay in tune with it, which is to say, don't stay in tune with facts or, behaving in a way that seems kind of like prudent. All of that's great, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about living from this place where you're connected to the thing that holds all ideas. That's kind of a roundabout way of saying things, but we do have the word discretion here. Discretion in Hebrew, it's mezamah. That's the word in the original text. And that doesn't mean discretion as we normally think of it. We think of discretion as like, oh, I'm going to abstain from this sort of thing. I'm going to exercise discretion and not drink that bottle of whiskey, for example. But if you look at the Hebrew mezamah, it's closer in meaning to a plan or a purpose. So doesn't that shed light on what this verse is calling us to do? It's saying not only keep focused on the space in you, that wise space that holds all ideas, pure imagination, pure wisdom, but secondarily, hold in your mind's eye the plan, the purpose, the vision, the goal, the thing that you want. And so it's really important to look at this word discretion and look at the original Hebrew, because without that, it could easily be misinterpreted. But this correct interpretation is further proven by the following verses. So shall they be life unto thy soul, and grace unto thy neck. Then thou shalt walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. So, by using your internal guidance system for guiding your actions, that's when you walk safely. That's when you don't stumble. And the key to that, again, stay in tune with that pure wisdom inside of you and keep your goal in your mind's eye. And if you do that, verse 24, when thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. So you bring that feeling of peace and fulfillment right into the night hours, right into sleep. You don't feel fear anymore because you're not reliant on circumstances to tell you you're doing a good job. You're not relying on circumstances to make you feel secure or safe. You found the source of all of those things, which is pure imagination, which is pure wisdom. So be not afraid of, verse 25, be not afraid of sudden fear, neither the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. So as you hold on to your inner state of knowing and fulfillment, and you stay in tune with that, the outside will rearrange itself, and there will be creative destruction. You'll have to let go of certain things. Certain things will change. Don't let that disturb you. Hold close to the inner knowing. Now, verse 27, we have a shift again. So we defined what wisdom was. We defined how to apply wisdom in the previous verses. And now this last bit is kind of encouraging us to apply it. It's saying, look, this is how you practically apply it. So start doing it. And so let's look at that. Verse 27. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. So say not unto thy neighbor, go and come again, and tomorrow I'll give you, when thou hast it by thee. So in other words, look at yourself as the neighbor here. Like most Bible verses, you can look at it all as an inner game. All the characters are within you. This is something Neville says over and over, as I'm sure you're aware. So when it's saying, don't withhold it. If you have it already, if you have it right by you, just give it. So you can think of yourself as split between the inner man, the outer man. This part within you that holds the wisdom in you, that holds all ideas, all possibilities, and genuinely can create things. And then there's the outer man, the limited man, this kind of poor brother donkey who has all these flaws and all these illnesses and all these weaknesses. And he's in need. And he's crying out. And he's your neighbor. And he's saying, hey, look, you have all this abundance. Would you please Give me some scraps, anything. And that's what this verse is saying. Look, withhold it not to whom it's due. So just give it to yourself. Imagine the fulfillment and feel it in your body. Don't say, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow, right? Come again tomorrow, I'll do it then. Verse 29, devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. So again, thy neighbor could be seen as your physical body, the physical man. He dwells securely by thee. So he's by you all the time. He's right next to you. So don't judge him, right? Don't look at him with this judgmental eye and critique him constantly. You look in the mirror, you see your flaws. He's stuck to you all the time. So why would you be judged? Give him love. Give him blessings. Verse 30, strive not with a man without cause, if he have done thee no harm. So the body has not done any harm to the inner man. It couldn't, even if it wanted to. It's a passive, receptive machine, essentially. It's a dumb machine. And so don't wrestle against the body's limitations. Don't have strife and strive against them to try and mold it and wrestle it into a certain shape or a certain behavior. The body is a passive, dumb animal. Just show it love, give it blessings, starting from within, and let those manifest outwardly, using the ways of wisdom, which again, were peace, right? I forget the other one it was, but essentially peace. We can scroll up and see. What were the ways of wisdom? Pleasantness, right? Peace and pleasantness. Treat your body with peace and pleasantness. Don't strive against it. Verse 31, envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. Now here, this is one of these great examples of how, if you look at the Hebrew, things are so much clearer. The word oppressor in Hebrew it's a man. It literally just means an individual man. So again, this is totally reaffirming how we're interpreting these verses, where it's not talking about an external man, some oppressor like a tyrant or your boss at work. It's talking about your body. And the Hebrew word that's used for oppressor is just ish. It just means a man. It just means an individual. So here we can see it as just your body, in particular your body in opposition to other bodies. There's this competitive thing that happens when we see ourselves. My body ends here, your body ends there. And then there's a sort of conflict thing that emerges. Yours is better in this way, mine is better in this way. Let's compete for status, for whatever, resources, women, etc. So there's a tendency there to do comparison, and that can lead to things like envy or whatever. Choose none of those ways, right? Don't do any of this competitive bullshit with other people. Don't compare your body to other people. That is not the way to success. Verse 32, for the froward is abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. So froward just means to turn aside or to depart. So what is it that the body tends to turn aside from? It turns aside from the inner wisdom. It turns aside from that inner awareness, that inner imagination, and it thinks of itself as separate. It's so easy to fall into this habit of thinking that it's the external world that sustains the body, that I'm eating this food and that's giving it sustenance, and that even my consciousness or my awareness itself is just an outgrowth of the body. But the body it's separate from God. It's separate from all of those things. And that's what it means to be froward, to turn aside, to depart. We're departing from that inner source of awareness, that pure wisdom, pure imagination. So it's when we get that feeling of separation that, again, things like comparison and envy and all these other things start to crop up, which ultimately are an abomination to the Lord, or it just means disgusting to the Lord. But his secret, the Lord's secret, is with the righteous. And the word secret here is just sod in Hebrew. And I don't like the word secret so much, although it works, right? It's a poetic way of saying that you're in communion with God, or with this awareness, with wisdom. From now on, I'm just going to use the word God because I don't want to have to repeat wisdom, imagination, God every time. But just know that when I say God, I mean that. I mean, all of those are completely synonymous terms for my purposes here. So when it says his secret, God's secret is with the righteous. Secret is something that is shared between two people who are very, very, very close. So the word here in Hebrew is sod, which means council or assembly. So it's two people who are in communion, they're connected, and they're sharing something very, very intimate. And it just means, it's just meaning, hey, don't separate yourself from God, from that source. And that's all it means to be righteous. Righteous just meaning to be straight, to be upright. It just means to stay in communion with God, to not forget that we are one with God. Verse 33, the curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. So here, what's the house of the wicked? Well, a house is a structure. This is the material world. Okay, the material world is the house of the wicked. That's the wicked house, because it tends to invert the truth about our real origins, about the real source of things. But he blesseth the habitation of the just. So what's the house of the just? That's the inner world, the imagination, etc. So that's where the blessings originate, inside. Verse 34, surely he scorneth the scorners, but he giveth grace unto the lowly. The lowly here just means humble. So what is it that's low? I want to take a second on this, because I definitely come from a Christian tradition where this idea of being overly humble in the wrong sense, or overly lowly, was emphasized almost to a fault. And it can create this trap where it's kind of like people, they're afraid to accept blessings. They're afraid to accept praise or wealth or good things because they don't want to be prideful. Remember, though, in this context here, we were just talking about the body, the physical part of us, as opposed to the inner man. And that physical part of us, in order to be happy, in order to be healthy, in order to receive the blessings from the inner man, it needs to put itself in the proper hierarchy with God. And so it is appropriate for our bodies, let's say the physical man, to be put in its place, to remember its place as really just a cause, as not the primary source of creation. And in so doing, it's able to be aligned with all of the blessings and wisdom that God wants to bestow. Verse 35, the wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. So the wise, we're going back to this idea of wisdom, how we started. Who is the wise? Ultimately, we are the wise. We are one with this loving, peaceful space that encompasses all ideas, all truths, all of creation. That is ultimately what we are, and that will inherit glory. But shame shall be the promotion of fools. So you can think the body is certainly foolish. It's filled with all of these habits. I know mine is bad habits. And that, to the extent that you give the physical man the glory, that you give him the credit, you will ultimately be met with shame and bad shit. You're going to create bad shit. Okay, so that was a bit of a longer video. I really don't expect anyone to watch these, but I'm just sharing these because I enjoy it, and for some reason I feel obligated, which might not be the best reason to do these things, but it feels important to me to make them. If anybody watched it all the way through, thank you. I appreciate it. And hopefully more coming soon. Thank you.